Well, welcome back to Mr. Upsley's Vintage Homesteading. Today, it's going to be kind of a rehash of what we've done in the past. Going to be talking about chainsaw sharpening. And I've moved into a new era lately. But anyway, for years and years from the beginning, 1980 when I first started using chainsaws, I've always filed them by hand. And, you know, when you start out, yeah, so-so, but you figure out what works and talk to people about it. Back then we didn't have the videos we can watch today on YouTube and whatnot, but anyway, we're going to be talking about the tools that we use. So here we've got a little skill saw, or kill saw, what it says right there now, since the S has kind of gone on it. And it's actually a Pullen Model 25 in disguise. It's got a 1/4 inch pitch chain. So what we have, I've got an old chainsaw service manual I've had forever, and in here, you can get it, see it, there's a list of all the file sizes for the different chains. And the interesting thing is that the chains on here, most of them are obsolete, down to a few that we have today, but these really show you all the different parts of the teeth and what to look for different problems with them, why they cut poorly or too aggressive. Okay, once we've figured out which file we need, and this one's a 1/8 inch for the 1/4 inch pitch chain here. And I've seen some guides that say 5/32, but what you need to do is put it into the tooth and see how it fits. And this 1/8 fits this chain perfectly. It sticks up out of the tooth just a little bit. Anyway, this would be kind of just the basics if you really want to see it more in other older videos where we really do a better job on it. But anyway, you can see there's an angle on the tooth. So you want to match that, and you want to have about a 10% down. And so you just, and you want to rotate the file every 3 or 4 cuts. That way the teeth don't get jammed up with metal. And then the other thing that you do, you go down all of them, and then you come back and do the other side, obviously. And then we're going to talk about doing rakers here a little bit. Now the raker, or the guide here, there's a distance between the two here, and the guide says 20/1000 of an inch. I run mine at 25 because I haven't found anybody that carries a 20/1000 inch guide plates like these. And most of the little saws like this, the problem isn't the power, it's just making them run all the time. So this fits over the teeth here like that, and then it'll stick up. And you have a file, flat file here, and you can go across it, and that doesn't stick up. That one's good. But when I first started out, I didn't know we had a really big dealer. It wasn't too far from us, and so I just had an old book, and it said just take a piece of flat metal here and stick on the top of the tooth and use a feeder gauge. And this is 25/1000, and you just go in between here to check it there, and that one's perfect. So that's the old-fashioned way of doing it. And anyway, so we'll just kind of briefly go over the different size chains here. Okay, well, this is the next size chain up. This is 0.325 inches, and for years I never had any saws that had it. I think I have 2 of them now, and you saw this one in action on a couple of videos we just did here recently. That takes a different size file to fit the different teeth here. This one's a 5/32. Just the same thing again. Establish your angle, rotate it, and on your cuts, when you first hear it, it's kind of coarse sounding. As it cleans up the cut and stuff, it's a lot smoother. check it carefully. Yep, perfect. So there again, you know, there, go back to the rakers again, and these are good. So anyway, we'll move on to the next one. Well, since I use the saws that have this size chain on them quite a bit, these are really nice size saws for firewood. You know, this is really the quickest and best way to do it. And you know, if you're using a round file like this, you know, you got to put it on there. You got to make sure it's square exactly. You're guessing, and got to have it the right amount down, 10% there. And once you get that done, then you got to go back and put your raker gauge on there and go over them. So like I say, it takes quite a while, you know, and if you want to do a really nice job, it takes quite a long time, but this is so much faster. So you just put it on here, put it in the tooth, flat ones, files right on top of the raker there, and just line these lines up, and there you can see already it's got a really nice smooth cut on it. The round files in here too, you can rotate them. Like after every 3 or 4 cuts, I rotated a quarter turn. That's the metal fall out. And the first one of these I bought was about 2 years ago for just standard 3/8 chain, which, you know, 78–80% of my saws use that 3/8 050 chain, and you know, just sped thing up so nicely and does such a nice job. But these German furred files are the best I've ever found, because I just changed the files out on my 3/8 one the other day after 2 years before it wore out. And before that, the round ones that I've been using here, you have to really be careful what you buy, because if you go to like the tractor junk stores and all of them have these cheap Chinese crappy deals, or Harbor Freight, you know, it's all junk. These are a Swedish Valorb, and they're pretty good, but they're not as good as the Furds. And there's others that I haven't tried yet, but these work so well, I just don't see any need to change. So anyway, like I say, just the other thing too is, you know, when you're cutting, you want to mark your tooth so you know where you started. And you just come around and about 5 or 6 swipes and it's perfectly sharp. Yeah, that's razor sharp. So move on to the next. Okay, well, here's one of our favorite old hogs, Homite Super XL 58cc. It's got a skip tooth chain on it, so yeah, there again, starting. As you can see, it's pretty noisy, it's pretty dull. And one thing that I upgraded to was one of these. This is made by Oregon, or sold by Oregon, I should say. And when you buy these, they used to have a really good quality file in them, but they don't anymore. But the thing that they have on them, you know, different chains will have different angles for the cutters and whatnot, and so you won't be able to see it on the camera probably. I've actually marked one here. And so when you put it on the chain, you just line this up to get the angle, and then make sure that it's the tooth in that lines up properly like that, and then this lays flat on there, and so it makes it a lot easier to, so you're not moving around like this. And there again, all you do, keep up your 10-degree angle on this chain, which is 72. See, that's a whole lot quicker and better. But since 3/8 050 chain is what I use on just about everything, is skip tooth, and it still takes a long time. So when these first came on the market, they're sold by Stihl, but they're actually made by Furd out of Germany. And I thought, it must be a gimmick, because they're kind of expensive. They're close to $50, but I talked to a couple of people and said, hey, these things are really great, and there's some YouTube videos on them and whatnot. So I went ahead and got one, and you know, from start to finish on this, I can do a really nice sharpening in about between 2 and 2.5 minutes. And there again, it's got the marks on here to line it up and put it on there. Just Yeah, this chain really needs some work. And then rotate it. There you go. Nice and smooth now. Nice and sharp. But anyway, like I say, I've always sharpened by hand. And it's always gotten me by. And if you look back in my old videos, you see that my saws cut really well. So I thought this was a cat's meow, but you know, out on the last big tree job in the last videos, the Still 051 got into some rocks that was underneath the bark and just about totally junked the chain, and so I had to take it to a shop to get it sharpened, and it cost me about 22 bucks and a 36-inch bar, and these are about $45 to $50. Now be careful on these if you buy one. There's a lot of Chinese knockoffs for 20, 25 bucks. They're junk. You need the real deal here, the German ones, the furred ones. But anyway, quite some time ago I was given a really nice piece of junk, but I never used it because I was so happy with my hand fighting. So we'll be right back. Well, we've moved into the modern era, sorta. This thing is really old. My friend Leonard used to have a Alaska sawmill, and so he always needed to sharpen his chains, so he bought this and did all his own work on his chains and whatnot, and I inherited all the equipment that was still good, this being one of them. And the thing is interesting on this one, this is not an Oregon, it's a bell saw, a fully bell saw. And I thought they'd gone out of business, but they're still around, and they still sell this and put some little more modern upgrades on it. But this has a number of features that are better than the new ones, and one of the features is there's a switch here. I'll take a picture of it and show you in a bit, but anyway, you can run the motor in either direction. So you set it up so your tooth is right here, and you lock it down with this lever, and then you bring this down and it goes into the tooth and cuts it. And I'm not going to do a demonstration on it today, but you know, if you'd like me to do a video showing how to set it up and use it, I'll be glad to do it, but let me know in the comments. But anyway, there's lots of little adjustments on it. There's a knob under here so you can turn the chain back and forth to do the cuts on either side. And the thing on the new grinders is the motor just runs in one direction. So when you cut a tooth in one direction, you're cutting down, and when you flip it to the other side, you're actually cutting up, and so it leaves a little bitty lip of metal there. And I've seen some people are really all fritzed out by it. It's not perfect, you know, and I guess if you're a professional sawyer or something like that, it might be important, but like I say, the new Oregons and others don't have the feature that this does. Now, interesting, on Oregon you can buy a switch, extra cost to put in to make it do the same function, but it should be just a standard item. But anyway, like I say, there's a lot of adjustments on it. You can turn this way to cut the teeth at different angles. Right here is a little bar that comes down that holds against the tooth to keep it in place, and you just lift this up and loosen this, and you can move the chain to the next tooth there. I went too far, and go back, it's up against it, and then lock it again, then you can do your cut. If your chain has an angle on it too, this knob on the bottom, you can swing it forward or back to get your 10-degree angle on the tooth cut. And then here you have an adjustment that goes against this, and what that does is it keeps the thing from going too deep. You can adjust it to cut your depth of the cut. And then on the back here there's a knob, and you can do that, and you can move it up like this, and then you put on a wider cutter, with a square face like this, and then you turn it straight, and then you do your rakers. So there's a few little tools you need to operate these. You need a little guide plate here, and you can check the thickness to make sure that it's round in here, because when you get these they're actually flat. And there's this carborundum stones here, so you turn it on and put it against here and go around on side to side to get the proper contour on it. And then you can get the big ones too, so you can just do it on both sides, but it just takes a minute. Wear gloves and be cautious. The only thing that I can find wrong with this thing is that the spring that holds this up is fatigued, so I have to take it off and retension it. But, you know, the paint and stuff's coming off. It looks like a piece of junk, but works perfect. So, because you can run the motor in either direction, vintage is best for sure. Okay, well, since vintage is for us, you know, I have Pioneer chainsaws and they're one of my favorites. This is an original filing kit. And it's got a number of things. It's got a screwdriver for adjusting the carburetor, a handle for the file here, file of course, and a depth gauge, and a scratch. So you got one for the spark plug, one for the bar nuts, and the screwdriver adjusting the bar. It's always neat to have stuff to go with your vintage junk. The other thing I just going to briefly talk about, like I say, for years and years I sharpened by hand, and I'm really impressed with how this thing works. Now there's a number of them on the market, and you know, if you want to go cheap, you can buy one from Harbor Freight or China Bob's as I call it, and I'll tell you a story about that sometime. And these, I think the company still makes them in Italy, is Tormek, and then of course they sell them as a bell saw still. But anyway, same basic machine with just a few upgrades, and it's so nice that, like I say, this does the best sharpening ever. I mean, I just did a chain on one of my McCullochs, and you know, I always thought my hand filing was pretty good, but this is much better. But the other thing too is that by the time you get ready to do all the stuff for all the different sizes of files and stuff you need, you have a whole bunch in it trying to figure out which one's which all the time, and all you need to do is change the wheel on this. Very simple. So anyway, like I say, if you'd like to see this thing in operation, let me know in the comments and we'll go from there. I'll call that good for today, and we'll see you on the next exciting video. Vintage is best.